So you're currently under contract with a buyer. Let's kind of break this down. What is list price and what is purchase price? Is the buyer getting concessions at 578? Boom, okay. So now let's break down the terms. Are they borrowing money? What type of loan? How much are they putting down? 125. So that would be more than 20% or right at 20%, which means that they don't have mortgage insurance. Mortgage insurance is required if they do not put 20% down. So now I would ask for the DU, which is called desktop underwriting. What that will do is it will show what stipulations are open. In other words, what the underwriter is requesting to approve the loan. We're also gonna see on there their DTI, which is the percent of their debt to income ratio. None of this is a deal breaker. It does say a lot about variables and things. It'll also show their credit score on the DU. Not that any of this matters because you're already under contract, but it's going to tell a story later should there be some issues. Next is, when is the inspection period over? Okay, nobody needs 15 days to inspect property. Just, they don't. You're telling me you know, but you negotiated the deal. So what you just did is now you've taken the property off the market for 2 weeks. So you asked me a question in the series of questions, should I still show the property? And the answer is yes, you should, because to take a property off the market for 15 days is significant time, which is why negotiating and protecting the state of the market's energy, 15 days is a very long period of time. So now what you need to do is connect with the buyer's agent and close that contingency. Now here's what closing the contingency looks like. A 15-day, if we're using the state of Florida, FAR as is, if we're using the as is contract, they have 15 days right to inspect and right to cancel. If we're past it, then we close the contingency. The moment you go under contract, the first thing everyone should do is create a document that has all of your dates. Execution, escrow deadline number 2, inspection, loan contingency. When is the appraisal ordered? When was the appraisal done? Like, all of these dates have to be in front of you. And we should be leveraging a transaction coordinator who will do this for you. Or you're the one doing it, and now you're supposed to go generate business, and you're supposed to follow up on business, and go and do all these things. You're just creating a lot of friction. Date of execution is the date that buyer and seller agree on all terms and date. So the moment you change something in a contract, it must be initialed and dated, and that changes the date of execution. You should read the contract, and you shouldn't guess. And it's in the clauses in the back of the contract under the letters that says timeline, dates. All this is very important, guys. And this is, again, why we should leverage a transaction coordinator, so that you're not representing someone and not necessarily knowing what it is that you're representing. As you're looking that up, we need to know what the end of the inspection period is. If we're past inspection, then we want to have everyone agree that we're past inspection, not just, oh cool, we'll keep going. No, they can back out of the contract anytime during the inspection period. So then the next piece of this is, when is the appraisal ordered? The lender orders the appraisal. So you should be in communication with the lender to see when they're ordering the appraisal, and is the appraiser contacting you to get access to the property? We want the appraiser to have contact you so that you could meet the appraiser at the property. So that's a few pieces right now for you to clean up, which is, are the dates business days? Are they calendar days? There was holidays in there, so does that push a day? Is that considered one of the holidays that would push the days? And this is, again, why a transaction coordinator is an excellent investment especially in your first several transactions, so that you can move along with someone that can keep the transaction in a straight line. And there's also, it says, holidays excluded. So you need to confirm the holiday that just happened last week. Is that a holiday that is considered one that skips a day? Again, the power of a transaction coordinator that you can coordinate with, stay in alignment with, and delegate tasks to. So in this case, right now, it's in writing, closing out the inspection period, in writing, which is a clause that you will write. All other dates stay in alignment because it would be a new signature, new initials, and we don't want a new execution date. So we would have to write in there. Again, this is the power of a transaction coordinator to keep all dates still moving, because we're not going to change execution date because we have a new signature and amendment to the contract, which would be closing out the inspection period, not making it 15 days, because they don't need 15 days. I would also coordinate with the appraiser so that you can meet them and convey value. I would find out what open stipulations are with the borrower. What are the open stipulations? And what are the underwriting turnaround times? I'm gonna explain now how the lending process works. So we have a borrower, we have a loan officer, we have a processor, and then we have the underwriter. The loan officer's job is to be the middle person for the underwriter. So the underwriter's job is to not lend money. It's the loan officer's job to solve the questions that the underwriter has to not lend money. Like, what are the tax returns? How much money do they make? Like, the underwriter won't lend money if they don't have these answers, so they're the gatekeeper to lend money. They don't want to do it. They'll do it if check, 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 check. And so that's why not all loan officers are created equal. Not all people who work in the mortgage world are equal, just like real estate agents. Sometimes we have to do the agent's job on the other side, and sometimes we have to assure that the loan officer has a competency level to keep the transaction moving according to the dates of the contract. Which is why when we represent a buyer, we should never put a date on the contract without talking to the loan officer. You can't put a closing date on the contract without speaking to the loan officer. Can you close by this date based on the underwriting turnaround times, based on the intensity at which you guys are receiving loan applications and processing loans? Because the transaction coordinator for a loan officer is called the processor. And so there's a middle person involved in the loan. One of the most important things for a loan officer and an agent to tell a borrower is that time is of the essence. If they ask for a document, you must get it to them as soon as possible. Because if we have 20 days for loan approval and the loan officer asks the borrower for a tax document, and the borrower waits 5 days because they're so busy, and then they ask for the request and they get it in 10 days, the underwriter has a 72-hour, making this up, turnaround time, which means whenever a document is submitted, they'll give a thumbs up or a thumbs down in 72 hours. Now we're 10 days, they submitted it, 72 hours, they now report back, we're at 13 days, and let's say that the underwriter needs new documents because of it didn't meet their criteria. Well, now they go back to the borrower, and the borrower waits 2 days, they get it back on the third day, so now we're at 16 days. It takes 3 days, we're at 19. What happens is the agent now finds out the day before, and now they're like, oh my God, we don't have it. And the buyer's backing out of the deal, or now you gotta go to your seller and say, oh, hey, They need an extension because they didn't get what they needed. That's why the question you asked, we want to stay in connection with what are the stipulations, what are the open stipulations, what are the turnaround times, so that we can not have something like this happen, where they waited 5 days to submit something. We can stay on top of it so that on day 19 of 20, we're not getting a call from the other side and we got our tail between our legs representing the seller going, oh man, we need to get an extension. Oh, we're not gonna close on the 30th, which today would be the 20th or the 21st. And the seller already ordered moving trucks, they already started packing everything up, and we don't have an answer from the underwriter, yay or nay yet. This is bulletproofing. That's why it's very important that we always have people who we know, like, and trust involved in a transaction. They don't have to use our people, but we always want our people involved so that if somebody's dragging their feet, we can represent our sellers, we can represent our buyers. And this is why experience costs money. Why joining a real estate team with someone who can get ahead of problems is part of a team, part of a thing. Why staying in the coaching program and staying on Eddie or bouncing off with partnering with somebody who can do this for you and get ahead of problems. Or you learn. And then you learn and you learn and you learn. Because all the things that I learned was because deals blew up. Enough to where I'm like, oh, I see what happened. Okay, got it. This isn't textbook things that I've learned. These are intuitions of more transactions than I'd like to admit not closing. And hearing what somebody would say, blowing smoke, and knowing that they're not telling the truth. I can't do that just hopping into a transaction. Which is why getting feedback from every showing and speaking to the agents is your value. So you can keep people close when a buyer starts to get remorse or can't qualify or does something stupid like buy a couch on a credit card and gets disqualified or changes jobs. So many things happen because of the level of not knowing how to communicate with our clients in an industry where 70+% of real estate agents last year didn't close a deal. So when they finally have something, the level of competency is very, very low statistically. Your dialogue with an agent who sees that it's pending on the MLS or would want to come back to see it because you're in communication with them is all part of your value to the seller, to keep people interested in the home so that you could protect the equity that they have by getting another offer. I'm doing research on everything the moment I receive an offer from anybody. But again, that's intuition. It takes a while. You see, how long has an agent been in the business? Have I done a deal with this person before? When you have thousands of closings, like our team does, you start to run into the same agents over the years. Real estate is a contract business. It's a legal contract. And so anytime there's a gray or an unknown, well, there's a way for someone to move in a direction. So the key is to keep contracts as tight as possible. So if we have a 15-day inspection period and inspections are done in 3 days and we negotiate back and forth for 5 and we still got 5 days left, we want to close the inspection period. And so we would have buyer and seller agree that clause, right to inspect, right to cancel, has ended on blank date. All other dates remain the same. This is a legally binding contract that we would add a clause, everyone would sign and date it, that we would close out a certain period. Everything should be over the phone and then followed up in writing and then signed in a addendum. And then assuring that the addendum is numbered and dated and that it is moving the transaction forward.